On this week's episode of the Jesse T Show, the amazing and powerful John Malott, founder of Build Your Empire. John has over $1.2 billion in sales throughout all of his companies. He's also been featured in many magazines and print articles from Forbes, Entrepreneur, USA Today, and many more. So make sure you check out and listen to the man himself. John, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, man, it's finally happening, bro. I'm glad to be here.
It is, man. It is. We connected in person almost a year ago at Patrick's event over in Omaha, EvolveCon 2. And, your message, your story, your personality, there's a lot of things that we share in common from troubles we've faced and things we've overcome. But you've lived a lot of great life in a short amount of time. And there's so much value I know that you can add to the listeners and viewers of the show. I wanted them to get, if they haven't heard of you yet, like the 5 people in the world, the other 5 need to hear about you.
You give me a lot more credit, brother, than I love it when someone makes me sound much better than I am. But I come on your show just so I can feel better about myself.
It's my job, man. Make people feel special. So John, let the world know a little bit about your story and what you've done.
Yeah, I don't have all the things that society says you're supposed to have to be successful. I don't have a college degree. I don't even have a high school diploma. You know how society has a way of putting people in boxes, color of skin, gender, age. In my case, it was my lack of education. I ended up doing exactly what, society expected from a 10th grade dropout. I found myself working over at the General Electric plant. I have a title now. I'm a custodial engineer. Yeah, I was a janitor. I was scrubbing another man's toilets, working paycheck to paycheck, struggling to keep up with the big mouth promises I made to family, friends, and bill collectors. I was just getting nowhere very, very fast. I felt like a hamster on a wheel. You know what I mean? I'm running. Every now and then I get off the wheel. I call in slick. I look around. I'm like, dang, I'm in the exact same spot. And I knew there had to be a better way. And I was, it's interesting because I was fortunate that I had a heart attack at 17 years old. Now, it's crazy to say fortunate, but when I look back, sometimes, our biggest curses, looking back, turn out that they are some of our biggest blessings, because it was in a drug rehabilitation facility where a man saw more in me than I saw in myself. In this individual, he convinced me that business was my way out of my circumstances, that it was the way out of my neighborhood. It was the way out of this negative thinking and all the stuff. 15 years old was my first felony arrest. I robbed a movie theater at gunpoint, so I was incarcerated most of my teenage years. And no one ever talked to me the way this man did. No one ever saw anything in me. I was a loser, drug addict, all the things, criminal. And I lived up to those roles very well until 17 years old in this drug rehabilitation facility. He gave me a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that was the seed that was planted. Now, of course, it didn't happen right away. I'll tell you that story. That was a painful, long story, but it did happen, man. But it took some time. It took a lot of tenacity, a lot of, this relentless pursuit to be something better than I was, a lot of laughter, a lot of ridicule. And then, today people think, oh, John Malott got lucky. I'm like, yeah, you weren't there, when I was bouncing off the pavement because, Les Brown said jump and the net will appear. When it didn't appear right away, 15 bounces off the pavement before that net ever showed up. But it's been a process, man. And again, the things that I really, when I was at my lowest point, it turned out those were when the decisions were made that I started to move myself down a path that completely changed my life.
Man, you're speaking, to my heart directly. I've been through some of those same things with, going through drugs, selling drugs, overcoming addiction. And it's one of those things where the world pigeonholes you immediately. There's such a huge taboo and sometimes rightfully so, but there's this mindset of people thinking that, once you're down that path, you'll never get out of it. You'll always be a loser, so to speak. And yep.
I was just gonna say, because society's rough on people. It's everybody's throwing rocks, pointing fingers. We got so many trolls, haters, and the challenges they get into your mind. And then it becomes our own mind that holds us back. It's not them that's holding us back. It's those words replaying, and then we start to replay, and then we start to believe it. We replay it so much. Like I started to believe, yeah, I am a loser. Yeah, I am a drug addict. Yeah, I am all these things. So it was very difficult for me to get out of that. And then once you get in the justice system, man, that's not an easy thing to get out of. I know I deal with a lot of young people today that are trapped, or they feel trapped. They're not trapped, but they're trapped by their own mind, thinking that they can't get out, that they're stuck. And, I'm here to tell you, anybody can get out, but we got to release this. Everything's got to be released here before we can, physically release ourselves from these chains.
You start believing the noise and the hype, negative or positive, and those self-limiting beliefs seep into the subconscious. So you're probably not even realizing it, but you're probably telling yourself you're a loser, you're a failure, you're no good. But you got to work your way out of it. And one of the ways it sounded like that you did was a blessing. It was someone who put belief of themselves into you. Like they believed you, they believed in what you could do. Talk a little bit about, I guess, kind of like a quasi mentor that you weren't prepared for, someone who came in and kind of helped shift your life and your paradigm. What were some of the things they were telling you and some of the things you started believing about yourself?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is that my past did not equal my future, which now, I have all this stuff tattooed somewhere on my body these days. But
I love it.
Your past does not equal your future. And I had a mentor that he said, look, man, your biggest challenge is you don't take responsibility for anything. You blame the government, you blame the police, you blame your mom for leaving. All I hear from your mouth is blame, blame, blame. And he said, until you take responsibility, until you look in the mirror, you're going to be stuck. He said to me, you made an appointment to be here. This wasn't somebody else. This was your appointment. You set this appointment. Here's where you are. And he said, that's the bad news. But he also went on to say, the good news is you can set a new appointment today. You can make a new appointment in 5 years. He always talked about 5 years. I could do a complete 180. He said, 5 years, your life can be totally different. And that was a big deal for me because, I didn't know, I thought that success was like some magical secret, or, some had it, some didn't. Some were born with the house and the Rolls Royce already in the garage, and the rest of us, we were destined for something else. I thought there was like a certain dust sprinkled on certain people. Well, in my neighborhood is a different type of dust, but
right.
We won't go there. But so I had this misconception of what success was, and learning the slight edge, learning simple disciplines every single day. How I could separate myself from the masses just by doing a consistent effort over a long enough period of time.
Yep.
And then focusing in on ratios, where I lacked in skills, I made up in activity, I made up in attitude, and that changed everything for me. Getting that finally embedded in my brain, I sort of realized I could compete with the best of the best because I could just stay on the treadmill longer than them. I could just stay on the grind longer than them. I would just have to, lose a little sleep in the early stages. Man,
so that mindset shift, because someone believed in you, helped empower you, and you started believing in yourself a little bit. Was it an immediate traction that you gained to kind of like go to the straight and narrow, so to speak, if that's even a thing, or like did you still have some learning lessons before you kind of hit your stride?
Bro, I've always had one foot in the hood and one foot out. Even today, man, I'm comfortable, rolling back in my own neighborhood, and I realize I got to be careful because I get sucked back into that nonsense pretty quickly.
Right.
I'm comfortable in a nightclub environment. I'm comfortable in my city, in places where a lot of people will probably be uncomfortable. A lot of my friends, it's crazy, still my age, are still hardcore into that stuff. Still wearing their hat, to the left and throwing gang signs in some of these places, and they're 50 years old. I'm like, bro, come on now.
Yep.
But but it was a process, man. It took me 7 years. When I became a full-time entrepreneur, when I said, okay, since nobody will hire me because of, felony arrest and, no education. Okay. It was bum or entrepreneur. Those became my only two choices. Now I already did bum. I did that very well. I was done with bum. It was time to become an entrepreneur. Like Dave, my drug rehabilitation counselor, planted the seed. So I pursued that. My first year as a full-time entrepreneur, I made $4,400 for that whole year.
Crushed it.
Man, yeah. So people were laughing, bro. They were like, "This dummy." People were like, "This dude." Nobody believed. Nobody believed there was no way John Malott was going to be, a millionaire for sure. No one believed I was going to make anything of myself. So it was more ridicule and laugh. But here's what's crazy. The second year, I made a little over $16,000. So that's not a lot per year, but the percentage of growth from 4,000 to 6. See, I kept focusing because I had a mentor, that came in my life a little later on, Paul J. Meyer, billionaire Paul J. Meyer. And he talked about ratios. He talked about, balance. He talked about all these different things I was starting to read and I was starting to learn. So I said, man, if I could go from 4,000 to 16,000, if I could keep that pace up, man, things could change dramatically. And here's what's crazy. It wasn't until my seventh year, I cracked $116,000 in a year, my seventh year. But then from there, the next year was over 200,000. Then it was $1 million. Then we cracked 2 million in a year. Now I've got a $250,000 a month residual income. So whether I roll over in bed or roll out of bed, my bills are paid, for the rest of my life.
Good to go.
And so but people don't realize the pain and the suffering, around the Thanksgiving table, people laughing at you. I was rolling in my Pontiac 2000, two-tone, one-tone rust, one-tone dirt. I was the joke, man. But hey, Jesse, let me tell you something. So remember I said, like, people were laughing at me, like, this dude is nuts, never going to happen. At a certain point, though, there was a switch. And the switch happened with other people more than with me. It was where now other people said, like this fool really believes he's going to be something.
Yep.
So there was a switch from it'll never happen to they believe that I believe. Now, that was a big switch, because now all of a sudden that got more people curious, looking over to see what the hell is he doing, because this dummy really believes he's going to be something. And then another switch happened where some people were like, shit, this dude might actually do something. So now people were like, okay, maybe I better put my toe in the water and at least pretend like I'm cool with this guy, because just in case. And that was another massive shift that got more and more people. And then, now it's a whole different deal. Now people are, because a track record, I get it. There's a track record. Now people realize that, I've helped people, our team has made over $100 million in personal income, from the crazy ideas that I had and the things that we did. It wasn't me necessarily, but it was us together coming as a team. I can't do anything on my own. I need mentors. I need guides. I need other people most people are much stronger in all these different areas than I am. And by all I got good at is facilitating, pointing, directing, promoting, and then edifying everybody. I'm like, Jesse T, he walks on water, glows in the dark, man. Wait till you meet this guy. Wait till you get on his show. And that's the type of thing that really, locked us together. We built a sick culture that people wanted to be a part of, just like what we're doing with the Build Your Empire community, showing people how you can go from zero to hero, from ordinary to extraordinary. And we're teaching the skills from branding to leadership, team build, all these different things that are necessary, scaling. And now they believe, man. Now people think I'm something, and I'm still like, man, I'm just John, bro. I'm John from the South Side, still trying to figure out if I get my mind right.
Man, there's so much there, and I think a lot of this stems back to that first book that kind of found you. I'm a big believer in books finding you at the right time, and I've seen this happen in my own life. But with How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Dale Carnegie. And like what you just did that whole time is you talk about empowering people and making people feel special, making people feel good, and leaving people better than you found them. And How to Win Friends and Influence People absolutely talks about how to do that. It's putting people in a better position, helping people, but you still had to have that belief, which you mentioned. The whole narrative was your belief in yourself. And I'm sure there was some dark times and some times when maybe you didn't believe in yourself as much, but eventually your mindset became contagious and it started bleeding over into other people's mindset. And then they started believing in you. And then all of a sudden you're building this wave of people that are becoming fans in a sense. Before they were doubters and now they're like on the bandwagon.
Yeah, man. Now they're like the people that I knew were haters. All of a sudden, like, man, we had your back the whole time. Bro.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Liar. You were the worst.
So you've been able to, that first 7 years of scaling, John Malott Enterprises LLC, right? Like going from, really as far down as you could have ever been in your life to now 7 years later, you made that first 6 figures, but in your mind, you're just getting started and you're exponentially increasing every year from 4,000 year 1, 16,000 year 2, and then all the way to year 7. So what was that first business, that $4,000 in year 1? What were you doing then? Was that network marketing? What were you selling or marketing then?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it was interesting that, I was introduced to network marketing by 2 individuals. One was a guy, I was introduced, but then the person quit that introduced me. So I gravitated towards a guy that made like $50 million that year in network marketing. Now, most people don't get introduced to people like that. They
very lucky.
They get, somebody that drives them crazy, harasses them, pukes all over them, and it's not very professional, untrained, whatever. But I didn't have that experience. I had world-class entrepreneurs. Jim Rohn, Jim Rohn was one of my early mentors. I hear people quoting Jim Rohn all the time. They don't even realize that he made his millions in network marketing, building MLMs. Wow. And he had an incentive to pour into me because he earned an override from me. I said, yeah, you got to have a mentor, but a mentor is going to need a reason to do it. Don't think you just call someone up and say, will you be my mentor? And they're going to do it because it takes away time from their family and other commitments they have. And so because I get hit all the time to be a mentor. And that's why I created a mentoring program that people could be part of. And I made it so inexpensive that underdogs like myself could participate and get the same information I got, but it also justified me taking the time away from other ventures and my family. But Jim Rohn came into my life, and he was the guy who really helped me put this to paper. He helped me think about building and scaling people the same way you would build and scale a brick and mortar business. And that changed the game for me when I realized, look, duplication, that's what scaling is. Dumbing everything down to its lowest common denominator. But we were part of a company that was pumping personal development into people's homes via a big ass satellite dish. I mean, this thing was huge. Now you see these little ones. So we would drive through the hood, and we'd see our satellites because I lived in the hood. So we'd see them all over these ghetto ass houses, this big ass satellite. We knew it was ours. That's ours. That's ours. That's ours. But it's funny. They didn't buy into the personal development. That's what I thought everyone would get excited about. We had Jim Rohn and Les Brown and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins, the best of the best.
The greats.
Right in your living room every day. Kind of like YouTube is today. This was way back, way before its time. But nobody wanted that. Eventually, it got bought by Primestar, which was turned it to digital, which eventually got bought by DirecTV. Primestar then offered 4 HBOs. Well, everybody in the hood wanted HBO. Man. It was over there. I was like, oh, all right, now I'll just forget the personal development. You need some entertainment.
There you go. Whatever hook you could get them in, and then eventually you find people, or they find the personal development. And so that was the first iteration of you kind of starting this business, which would become, today it's night and day from where it started. And so talk about some of the iterations that you went through, from what different businesses you kind of build and scaled, and kind of some of the things that you're doing today with your businesses.
Well, for me, I've always have a goose that lays the golden eggs. I'm big on residual income. I'm big on building cash flow. So I guess, some people are house flippers. I guess I would be more of the apartment building, guy that's getting the rents every month, because I like a steady stream of income, and that steady cash flow came from these network marketing companies that allowed me then to, I have had restaurants, nightclubs, publishing companies, real estate investment companies. I had a mixed martial arts cage fighting production company until my good friend Dana White put me out of business. And I'm proud of that, because, we did very, very well. And it took Dana White to finally knock us out in the Midwest, because he changed the rules to the game, and smaller operators couldn't operate. But I've had so many different businesses, and having a cash flow machine allowed me to make a ton of mistakes. Man, I tell people all the time, I'm the biggest failure you'll ever meet. I go from one failure to the next failure without losing any enthusiasm. I just keep going and going and going. But I do feed the goose that lays the golden eggs. I do take care of that goose, because I know, look, I got to keep moving. So, Mark Twain one time said, he said, I only had 2 major breakthroughs, but it kept me in pipe tobacco for my entire life. And I think what he was saying is, you only need a couple of big hits to do very well financially, and not have to worry about stuff. And that's what happened to me. I had a couple of big hits that, I've sold a couple of companies, some pretty big exits that allowed me time to regroup and figure out what I want to do next. I don't have to do anything out of desperation, because I see a lot of people doing stuff out of desperation. People get in network marketing companies and they're desperate. You can tell they're desperate. You can smell commission on their breath, and they wonder why they can't get traction. So we teach how to get posture, how to build your part-time income, so at some point your part-time income exceeds your full-time income. And now you live in a world of I choose to, no longer in a world of I have to. And that, that's the kind of stuff that we teach. And we teach people to think like a Fortune 500 CEO, to understand what that person has to go through, and what their skill set has to be to build a big business. Because today, Jesse, everyone's running around like, I'm a boss, I'm a baller. You can put CEO on your business card, and it's like
everybody's fronting, man,
officing nothing. But it's all ego, man. I'm like, that's why people ask me what my title is. I'm like, bro, I'm just John, man. Just call me John. I'm uncomfortable with all the titles. I think it's a way for people, and I'm nothing. I understand why they're there, especially if you're in a corporate structure. I'm not really in a corporate structure like that. But for me, I feel like the titles are a way for people to try to command the respect of other people, to say, I'm this, so therefore you should respect me. I'd rather say, respect me based on, but what I do and what I bring to the table. You don't have to respect me today, but, let's hang out a little bit and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. Let the interaction and the relationship speak for itself, not just something on a business card. which by the way, business cards are garbage anymore. I don't even like having business cards, but like in my industry, like it's good to have them just in case. But you talk about, it's funny because, you know, one of my first job after I left the military, left Boston, coming down to Georgia was outside sales. It was door-to-door, cold call, commission. It was recruiting. It was finding people to replace yourself, like you talk about. And one of the things we used to tell our people all the time was, if you have that desperation, if you have, if you have dollar signs in your eyes, people can see that coming a mile away. So it's all about the attitude. Like, and we took a lot from, Zig Ziglar. A lot of stuff came from Zig Ziglar. A lot of stuff came from Jim Rome. Some of the greatest, people in that game. Attitude is 100%. And if you break down the letters, it shows like 100%. Like all these things that you learned transcended through each different iteration for different businesses that you've run and you've put together. So what would you say was keeping that fire burning for you as you're going through your seasons of business? Because you definitely have a passion that exudes. You definitely have a story that's about overcoming and winning and dominating, but also helping people. Like, what was it that was carrying you through those seasons of business over the last 10, 15, 20 years?
I had big reasons why. And, the first one, when I look back, was, of course, the drug problem. When you almost lose your life, no matter where you're at, it does force you to reevaluate some things. It does force you to think a little bit. Even though at that time, I was ready to go. It's crazy because when I think back at 17 years old, I was kind of done. And I knew what was happening. And if my mother hadn't found me when she did, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. But I had already resigned to that was the end. And it's crazy that when I think about that now, because I love life, man. I live life to the fullest, and to think that I was done at that age it's sad, because there's a lot of other kids. I lost my sister to a heroin overdose at 21 years old. My brother is still to this day a full-blown, addict. And it's a challenge because there's so much more to life. But what kept me going was always my reasons why. When I was 24, it was the last time I was arrested. Now, it was a felony arrest. I was arrested as an adult. And I'll never forget, I was sitting on the bullpen floor in Milwaukee County Jail. It was July 4th, 1993, that weekend. So busy time, man. The court system's busy,
Sure.
Holiday weekends too. And I'm sitting on the floor because there was no room on the bench anymore, because all the biggest, baddest, best criminals had the bench seating. I had this little spot right next to the toilet, which happened to be leaking that weekend. So I had a little riverside, property. And I had I had a bandage on my head because I had stitches in my head because the altercation that happened after I was arrested from the police.
Wow. And
I sat on that floor for 4 days, man. And what played him, now at this point, though, when I was being arrested, being let out of my house, I had a 2-year-old daughter. Now she's, what is she, 27, my daughter, Lauren. And as I was being let out, I'm being handcuffed. And I'll never forget, I looked back and our eyes, she was screaming, crying. She didn't know exactly what was going on. She just knew the house was being disrupted. And police were leading me out, and we connected eyes. It couldn't have been more than a couple of seconds, but it seemed like a lot longer, man. And she's crying. I'll never forget her face as long as I live. But sitting on that bullpen floor, two things that went through my mind. Her face, and another thing that Dave in the drug rehabilitation said to me. He said, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Matter of fact, I have it. It's one of my tattoos, the quote. I didn't know where that came from back then. And those were the two things that kept playing over and over in my mind for 4 days sitting on the floor. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, and the face of my daughter. And I'm a grown-ass man. I can't even take care of the one kid that I have, much less children's children. But I made a decision on that bullpen floor. When I'm done with this ridiculous thing that I did, of course I blamed it on the police. But, every criminal blames it on the police. The police are terrible. Well, you committed a crime.
Because you got caught. Yeah.
But I made a decision right there. And I was never, and since then, 24 years old, never arrested again. Sorry about that call.
Okay.
This call was coming in. Never arrested again. Never did drugs again. And, that was the beginning of the process that in the lifelong pursuit. And again, I feel like I'm just, but it was always my reasons why. My kids were big drivers. My daughter could not grow up in that neighborhood that I grew up in. I was still living in the house next door to the house that I grew up in. That neighborhood was destructive to boys, to men, even worse on girls, young women. Everything was about, degrading or downplaying or using, women. And I'm like, man, I can't, I got a daughter now. I can't have her growing up in this neighborhood. So
well, you got to be the example. Yeah.
Yeah. It drove me every day. I was determined. And And, I ended up getting married early, and my wife, she loved the hood. She couldn't understand why I wanted to get out. And that's eventually led to us, splitting. Incredible lady, but she's gangster, bro. And I couldn't stay in that environment. I was like, I gotta go, man. I gotta get out of here.
There's something to be said for motivation and discipline, because motivation is fleeting, but discipline can carry you through the tough times. But if you're just doing it for yourself, it's not nearly as powerful as hanging a Y on it, and a Y like another person to take care of, or other people, your children's children. There's not much more powerful than putting that together. And so that's, for most people that need a why, start with why, Simon Sinek. Find something that's bigger than you and go after it and do it for them. But so you've seen a lot, done a lot in business and in life, and talk a little bit about some of the businesses that you've been able to build and scale, and like what's brought you to where you're at today.
Man, right now I've got some cool stuff in the works I'm really pumped about. We've got a company called MetaPure that's going public on the NASDAQ here within the next, 90 days or so. We're just finishing up all of that, which is a pharmaceutical cannabis company, but it's based on the cannabinoid system that's inside of our bodies already.
Yep.
To help alleviate the opioid challenge, which is
a way to get people off of drugs.
Way to get people off drugs by having alternatives to opioids that last longer and are not addictive, and actually use the body's own ability to receptors for pain and anxiety and all those different things. So we're going into the third stage of clinical trials, and it's unbelievable what, when this thing hits, it's massive. It's a pharmaceutical company with a twist. It's going to be big.
Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of kind of the delivery mechanism, and like what the clinical trials, maybe if there are any, like what it's showing, and like kind of just talk a little bit more about like the process, and like, because where I grew up in Boston, it's one of the worst places for opiate addiction in the world. And it's crazy. And my dad was a 40-year heroin addict. I did heroin for about a year. And it's one of those things where it's near and dear to my heart to like help people through those things. So what have you seen with this, new medication, new drug, new thing? And like, what do you feel like it's going to be able to do?
Well, think about it like this. So you take oxycodone, which is the beginning stage. That's where people start before they end up on heroin, because heroin is cheaper in the end and easier to get nowadays. But, you take that pill. It takes about, 30 minutes to start to do what it's supposed to do. And then it lasts about 4 hours. So you take another one and another one. And that's what starts to lead to that cycle. We're creating drugs without the addictive qualities of oxycodone that will enter your bloodstream in 10 to 15 minutes, absorbed, and then last 12 hours, 12 to sometimes longer than that. So now you're taking less and less of a medication, more effective, and it's working with your receptors that are already built into all of our systems. Our body's an amazing healing machine when it comes down to it. We don't give it enough credit, and we beat the hell out of it with all the processed food, the air, the water, everything that we do, the hard living, the stress. But if we give our body the right raw materials, and if we all know this, you can do amazing things with your body. So we're in these clinical studies testing, these different medications that are non-addictive, that don't have, that are as effective and last longer as oxycodone. And that's just from the pain side. We're building an anxiety drug. We've got a drug that we're building for psoriasis. I mean, it's a topical that actually, eliminates without steroids and things like that. So, it's a pretty amazing deal. I'm excited about that. We've got a company called Miraculum, which is an all-natural fire suppression deal. We're spraying, California and Australia with all kinds of chemicals to put these fires out.
Yep.
And it's not good for the environment overall. Those chemicals actually do as much damage as the fire in some cases. So we've got all natural fire suppression, and also it'll go in like carpeting. When you're off gassing carpeting, those are carcinogens that we're breathing in. So imagine having an all natural fire suppression, because the government requires certain amount of fire suppression on airplanes, carpeting, building materials. We can put this into building materials. It doesn't off gas the chemicals, and it's all natural. And the burn rate is much slower than the chemicals. So it's a much better product. So we're excited about that. And then the two things where I'm focusing most of my energy, my big one that I'm scaling with people right now is we've got a DNA-based custom nutrition company. You swab your cheek, and then we create a raw, plant-based, all-natural, custom supplement based on superfoods, herbs, spices, plus vitamins, minerals, specifically to you. 400 million possible variations. Every single one off the line is unique and special and different. And so, yeah, I'm pumped about that. I'm putting most of my time, energy is going into that. We just launched this. We're actually doing all of our launch parties this first quarter, and then we'll start opening up other countries probably by the end of the year. So, yeah, that's where I'm putting my energy. We also have SetJet, the private jet company that we just launched. We actually just had our 100th flight, so we're excited about that.
Congratulations.
We have another private jet coming. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's nice to go to the airport, park your car, walk on the plane, and no security, and
game changer.
Yeah, fly to San Diego for lunch and be home by dinner. It's a cool deal.
So talk about the For You, Made For You supplement, health and wellness. Is that called Euphoria, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, it's called Euphoria, and it's a game changer, bro. The days of blind nutrition, guessing on what I should take, listening to gurus, and because we don't know, some people don't absorb B vitamins, certain D vitamins.
Everybody's different. Yep.
Everybody's different. We're 99% the same, but it's that 1%. Like if I drink a glass of milk, I'm sick for a month.
Whoa.
My wife can down a gallon. It doesn't affect her. Or, like some people will smoke and they live to be 100. Another person gets secondhand smoke and they got cancer. It's like
crazy. It's
the craziest stuff. So we're just tapping into science that's already there. This science has been around forever. Just nobody's scaled it. The top 1% are already doing this stuff. Yep. Naturopaths. I got my athlete friends. They're already doing this type of testing. And we're just now scaling. We're taking this thing global at an affordable rate. Instead of dropping $1,000 a month, it's a tenth of that to get the same type of access that, the 1%ers get. So that it's going to be big. This is a multi-billion-dollar play. It's just time now. The market's being educated. We got first movers advantage. Every nutrition company is going to be forced to figure out how are they going to customize their nutrition. Because why would you, if you have a choice between it's basically the same price, why would you ever go to GNC and buy something off the shelf that's made for the masses when you can, maybe even for less money, come to me and I can make a formula specific to your body that you'll feel right away and that your body will absorb and you won't be wasting money, time, and energy.
It's funny that you're bringing that up where in my world as an investment manager, there's this video that's out there. It's called The Butcher versus the Dietitian. And the butcher just sells you the meat or the fish of the day. And they're like, here you go. Good luck. The dietitian that butcher is the regular like financial services sales rep. And then the dietitian is what I do. And that's the person who looks at your overall wellness, figures out what's going on and makes a custom tailor-made plan for you. And that's what you're doing in that space. Right. And
it's big.
Huge. And so also you mentioned SetJet, and that's 100 plane trips or 100 rides or whatever we're calling them. I don't know. I don't mean to butcher it, but with that, are you in like what cities are you in? Where can people like get on these flights?
Yeah, it's limited right now. So right now it's Arizona, Nevada, California, because we're doing Scottsdale to Vegas, LA, San Diego, San Francisco, and
okay.
we get our third jet coming. And then we'll open up the route to Aspen, Colorado, Cabo San Lucas, and then we've got these are big, beautiful Challenger 850s, $6 million interiors like Rolls Royces flying through the sky. So they'll be regional. So we'll we get this route rolling the way we believe, and we got some momentum right now. Then we'll open up another region, and we'll do that in different regions all around the country.
Nice. Kind of like start chaining them together, connecting flights and like kind of all around this region. Eventually you could do it everywhere.
Yeah. And it's a membership based deal. And we got the least expensive membership on the planet. It's $99 a month.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but we've got the numbers worked out and it has the potential to be extremely profitable, but it's a massive win for the consumer. Like even, in Las Vegas, these like Caesar's Palace, they don't want to keep jets around even for their high rollers. So you can contract with a company like us, and we got a jet waiting for their high rollers in Scottsdale, Orange County, LA, and they got access on a regular basis. So we're flying back and forth. Vegas is one of our big routes, back and forth. LA and Orange County as well.
Yep. Destination type places. People want to go to Vegas. People want to go to LA. People need to travel all around the kind of the Southwest. So, when someone, in my mind, I'm a numbers guy to a degree, and I'm like, well, $100 a month, how does that work? And I could figure out like the different things that go on behind the scenes. But so they want to get, into the membership. they sign up $100 a month. And then like, let's say they're in these areas that you service. What does it look like for them to get on a flight and all this different stuff? And like, how does it work for them?
Yeah, it's $99 a month. There's a $99 one time. They got to go through this background check deal because there's no TSA or any of that stuff. So it's a little different process.
Smart.
And then,
yep.
then it's $400 per flight. It's $400 one way. So you hop on a luxury Challenger, $850 for $400, man. And you know what it would cost to charter that thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's pretty amazing.
That's awesome, man. And so talk a little bit about, because you this is something I think that you didn't necessarily talk about before we jumped on, or as we were talking while we were on, but you mentioned before we jumped on about build your empire. And so, so talk a little bit about build your empire. Is it like the overall kind of, guiding star for everything that's underneath? And like what is build your empire doing, and some of the relationships and some of the I guess, careers you've been able to facilitate, some of the people like Casey Adams, some of the other people that you work with, like you've been able to, and obviously they're great at what they do, but you can help them along. And like you said, build people like you build businesses, right? So I'm seeing some of that there.
That's my thing. And I tell people, I build people that build companies is basically what happens. People say, well, call me a motivational speaker, and I would get offended. Well, I don't get offended anymore. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm an entrepreneur that speaks. I'm an entrepreneur that teaches. And, I think motivation is temporary. I think we all need some motivation, but motivation is like taking a shower. You gotta keep getting it. But inspired people don't need motivation. Inspired people need practical, useful skills. And of course, a lot of that comes down to mindset, and then people mistake teaching mindset as motivational in some cases. And some people just read a book and then they go on stage and they think they're, some people want to be motivational speakers. I just look, if you take an idiot and you motivate him, you got to motivate an idiot. I don't want to be known for motivating a bunch of idiots. I want to be known for someone that's providing good practical information, because I was an idiot that got around people that had good practical information, but I was inspired to do something with it, and then that changed my life. But Build Your Empire, we showcase world-class entrepreneurs, and at the same time, we're lifting up the next generation. So basically, think about it like this. We're taking this more mature wisdom, people that have been there, done that, track record, that type of thing, and we're connecting them with this young, high energy, want to make it happen, big reason. We're putting those together, and that's a powerful combination. When you put those two together, magical things can happen. And so, we've taken a lot of chances. We've it's not the umbrella for everything. It's just one of our vehicles. On Instagram, I think Build Your Empire's got like 1.4 million followers. So we got a pretty good base there. But we're, we've got events. We've done events all over the world, Frankfurt, Germany, where this year we've got some big events that we're planning. I'm doing a bunch of networking around it, where we just tell people, come out, hang out, come meet other people. I'm big on giving people access to my network. So if you get around me long enough, I'm going to introduce you to someone that can probably take your idea, your business, whatever it is, to the next level. I don't ask for anything for it. I just believe that my blessings come because I'm connecting. And if I light your candle with my candle, it takes nothing from me. And then what happened is crazy. Like I've had a lot of big deals that have happened because of my connections. I didn't ask for anything from it, but I got so much from it because I believe the way the universe works. All of a sudden, it looks like I got lucky on another deal. And I'm like, no, I didn't get lucky, bro. That was because I put two multi-million dollar deals together, and it's coming back to me one way or the other. I have a massive abundance mentality. I want you to smash it. Takes nothing away from me. I want you to be the best of the best top. And if I can provide access, direction, guidance, or whatever to help that happen, there's a good possibility down the road you tell someone, hey, John Malott's a good dude. They look me up. Next thing you know, I'm doing a multi-million dollar deal with someone that I never met, but it was because of my connection to you. You know what I'm saying? That's why I love these podcasts. I love this kind of stuff. We didn't have this before, man. We can connect so fast to so many people. It's ridiculous. And for me, like, why would I ever retire, man? I got a phone that I can talk to anybody in the world. I can see them face to face for free. We could put 50 people on this thing right now and do stuff that I couldn't do back then. I had to go to hotel meetings. I had to hand out VHS tapes. I had to work with fax machines. Was our biggest technology. I'm like, bro, if you can't make it now, you can't make it.
Someone asked me to send a fax nowadays. I almost look at them like they have three heads. I'm like, really? You're going to make me do all that work?
Yeah, that's a lot of work, man.
But yeah, it's interesting that, the level of connectivity we have and the ability to make an impact. And even in my world where bringing on prospects, new clients, making introductions, I say the same things. I'm like, if I can add value to you, one day, whether it's good karma, whether it comes back around in the form of business, whether it's a high five, I've done my job as a human being, like, why not do it? And you talk about abundance. You talk about how, there's more than enough for everyone out there 10 times over. It's a market that we live in. Money exchanges hands, and it's secular, and there's all these different things that go to it, that if you're living in a world of scarcity and you're afraid of sharing or giving out ideas for free, you're behind the times.
Way behind.
Yep. Yep.
And it's unfortunate, and I think some of it is, people are looking for the big hit, number one. They're looking for the one secret to be successful. I always tell people all the time, everyone comes to me because they want to do something. And then, they say, I don't want the get rich quick scheme. And I'm like, no, you really do want the get rich quick scheme. In the end, we all secretly want the get rich. I would like to win the lottery.
Sure.
Who wouldn't? We all want that. But the challenge is, it's not realistic. It's not the reality. If you really want to smash it, there's a process you're going to have to go through. And unfortunately, you have to work that dirty 4-letter word called work. And then there's time involved, and there's energy, and then there's ridicule, and all these things that go along with it. And it's not for everybody. It's like going to the gym. I knew the 6-pack abs that I wanted to have. I wanted those abs. I saw them on Men's Health magazine. I cut that picture. I put my head on that dude's body. But then I went to the gym, and it was painful. It sucked. And I was hurting the next day. It was easy for me to say, well, maybe I won't have a 6-pack. Maybe a 2.5-pack will be all right. You know what I'm saying? So we all have to decide, am I willing to pay the price? People always say, well, I want what you have. I said, well, are you willing to do what I did? That's the difference. It looks pretty. Me and my beautiful wife, live an incredible lifestyle, and I can see from the outside, but you're only seeing my highlight reel. You're not seeing the behind the scenes, the grind, I've been in my bed in the fetal position, sucking my thumb some nights, like, man, I just took a big, big hit. I've had IRS, lawsuits, all kinds of things, unexpected things that I'm like, man, how did this happen? I had nothing to do with this. Why am I in the middle of this? And you just got to be prepared and willing to say, okay, whatever comes my way, here's where I'm going. Here's where I am. The gap between is called execution. And the reason why is big enough for me to go through the pain to climb this thing to get where I need to be. And that was always the thing that drove me.
Beautifully said, brother. The execution piece is huge. Mindset is one thing. The motivation, like I mentioned earlier, it's great, but it's fleeting. But those deepest, darkest moments, you still have to operate, and you have to have the discipline and the why, which is the bigger overarching theme, is what's going to keep you through, what's going to get you through to the bright spots again, where you can shine and keep pouring into people and really be, on top of your game. So as far as people getting in touch with you and everything that you're doing right now and finding out more about how they can plug in and just be a part of anything you have going on through all your businesses, how would they do that? How do they find you? Where are you at?
Yeah, the best way, most of my energy goes into Instagram. I know there's TikTok. I'm like, I'm still trying to figure, am I going to do dances every day on TikTok and lip sync?
Pain in the ass.
I see it as an amazing platform. I'm just not sure if, how that, but I am on TikTok, but that's not my place. Instagram is where the majority of my content goes. Instagram, John, John Malott, Malott. So we got John.Malott, and then our @Build Your Empire page on Instagram as well. That's probably the best place. I try to hit everybody back. I try to respond to every comment. I do all this stuff myself. I don't have my team doing that. So that's where my first line of defense is, my first connection, with people. And, but yeah, that's the best place. Instagram, hit me there.
Awesome. Incredible journey. Great life experiences. You've seen some of the darkest moments and some of the brightest skies, brother. I'm happy for you. I'm proud for you. And you're kicking all sorts of ass and taking names. So please be sure to reach out to John. If anything he's doing inspires you or triggers you to have that question or that comment, he will do his best to connect with you. He's the amazing, mighty, and powerful John Malott. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.